This week on Emily Celtics Weekly, the Celtics work hard and in the end are tied for first place in the Atlantic Division. Paul Westphal and Gerald Henderson come back to town and relive some of their Celtic memories. And we'll revisit the Celtics' new practice site and look at the entire facility. All this and more next on Emily Celtics Weekly.
Emily Celtics Weekly, brought to you by Emily Motor Oil. Better than it has to be. And now, here's your host, Mike Gorman.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Gorman. Welcome to Emily Celtics Weekly. If someone had told you at the beginning of the season that the Celtics would be headed for the All-Star break, tied for first place in the Atlantic Division, but would have done it without Larry Bird, without Kevin McHale, and without Dee Brown, well, you would have thought that person was nuts. But here we are, headed for the All-Star break, and there the Celtics are, in a tie for the Atlantic Division lead. Boston has gained a new identity without two of the big three and continue to play excellent team basketball. Last week they had 3 games at the Garden. First up, the Orlando Magic last Wednesday night. Robert Parrish would keep the Celtics in this game early. Nice little dish from Reggie Lewis there, and it ties it up at 6. Orlando playing pretty well. Parrish putting the spin move on Stanley Roberts for 2 of his 21. Boston up by a deuce, and then on the defensive end, Robert Parrish, nice job there, getting 1 of his 5 blocks in the game. Eddie Pinckney coming up with a block of his own there to Sherman Douglas. Sherman with some nice moves with the ball. Nice little fake right there. Celtics lead by 8, 26-18 in the second. Chris Corchiani played well in this game. Dishing off there to Jeff Turner, who had 14 off the bench. John Bagley, though, strips Corchiani on the drive. Gets the layup on the other end. The Magic lead is cut to 3, 44-41. But Corchiani returning the favor, coming up with a steal. He had 3 on the night to Anthony Bowie for the layup. And the Magic lead by 9 at halftime. But the Celtics come back quickly in the second half. John Bagley to Reggie Lewis. Reg had 30 on the night, tying the game at 59. And Reggie, nice little move on the baseline for the old-fashioned 3-point play. Celtics are up by 4. Sherman Douglas inside to Eddie Pinckney for a stop. Celtics lead by 5, 78-73. Kevin Gamble, some icing on the cake.
Defensively, in the third quarter, we just picked it up. And our break was going. We were getting things off the break, and Chief was clogging up the middle. Eddie was getting offensive rebounds. So, those are the things we have to do. If we want to be a good team.
Our last 4 wins have been because of defense. I feel like we definitely making an effort on the defensive end, and especially being that we're shorthanded now, we can't afford to have those lapses out there like we had in the second period. We got to bat down and play hard for 48 minutes.
We just didn't play good enough defense in that third period. We were constantly taking the ball out of the net, having to come down, play half-court basketball, which is not very effective for us right now. And they crept back into the game, got the crowd into the game, and then there was we were scratching and clawing after that all night long.
Especially in order for us to win, we have to have everybody involved. We just can't count on 1 or 2 guys. It's going to take a team effort.
Friday night, the Phoenix Suns came to town. Tom Chambers with the drive and the dunk, and the Suns were out early by a score of 6-2. Reggie Lewis, the drive. Nice dish there for Ed Pinckney, getting the stuff of his own. 13 and 11, the numbers for Eddie. But the Suns still have the lead. Dan Marley, the quick reach in there. Marley will get it back for the dunk on the other end. And the Suns go up by 12, 35-23. And then again, Kevin Johnson, the quick hands to Tim Perry, who killed the Celtics all night long. Suns go up 45-39 in the second. And Kevin Johnson again, 16 assists, finding Perry. Suns by 9 in the third. And then KJ with a little drive of his own. Suns lead 77-69. John Bagley finding Ed Pinckney, who had a good night dunking the ball. Suns lead is down to 6. And then Robert Parrish inside to Eddie again. And the Suns lead is down to 2. Robert Parrish, biggest shot of the game for the Celtics. Rainbow turnaround ties it at 91. But Tim Perry again with a running hook shot to put the Suns up by 2. And then the killer right here. Kevin Johnson looked like his foot was on the line. They gave him 3. And the Suns won the game.
We had control of this game, from the opening tip all the way to the end. So it was up for us to hold on to what we had, and they were trying to take it away.
I felt like we'd have to keep pushing them back because this young group of guys have really been hustling for the Celtics without Bird and McHale, and these guys just keep coming at you all the time. And, Chris Ford's doing a heck of a job with them.
Everybody was in there scratched and clawed, and we still had a chance to win it at the end. And that's about the only thing you can ask from these guys right now. They played with a lot of heart. They didn't give up, and we found a way to almost pull them.
I definitely like the effort. The first half, I feel like we wasn't into it mentally. But the second half, I feel like we played very hard on both ends of the floor. We just unfortunately went ice cold on offensive end.
We didn't make the shots down the stretch. The shots were kind of falling short, and Phoenix did a good job of rotating guys in, and they pulled out the win.
Well, that loss to the Suns put the Celtics a half game behind the Knicks in the standings, and the weekend wasn't going to get any easier as the Detroit Pistons were coming in on Sunday afternoon. We'll have highlights of that and more as Amalie Celtics Weekly continues.
Goes to Brown, Reggie. Works hard over the top of Lampier. Tip. Yeah, they call it goaltending. They call it goaltending. No basket.
Well, on Sunday afternoon, those same Detroit Pistons were at the Boston Garden, and in a scheduling oddity, it was the first time that these two teams had met since the Pistons had eliminated the Celtics in last year's playoffs. The Celtics jumped out early on Sunday afternoon. Kevin Gamble, nice little drive through the lane. The Celtics are up 6-0 to start the game. Isaiah Thomas through the legs of Eddie Pinckney with that one, but the Celtics still lead by 6, 19-13. But as the time wound down at the end of the first quarter, Bill Lambert hit a three, and the Pistons went up 26-25. Rick Fox, though, coming up with the steal, finds Sherman Douglas. Back to Rick for the layup. Boston has a 1-point lead, 39-38 in the second. Joe Klein hit some big shots in this game. Baseline jumper there to put the Celtics up by 2. But Joe Dumars knocks down a three. Boston's lead is cut to 1 in the third. Again Lampier, and again a three-pointer. Pistons go up 71-70. Kevin Gamble, though, burying that one. Celtics go up by 3, 76-73. And again, as the shot clock goes down, Joe Klein hits that jump shot. Celtics lead by 7, 90-83. Joe Dumars, though, tough as always for the basket and the foul. Celtic lead down to 7. And then Rick Fox loses this rebound right underneath to Dennis Rodman, and the Celtic lead is down to 5. But Robert Parrish, again with the shot clock going down, hits a big jump shot. Sherman Douglas, as always, just kind of throws it in. Tough to call it a shot. And then Rick Fox, the jumper, and the Celtics have a big win over Detroit.
The defense for us has seemed to be the easier thing right now. We've been going after teams, but we've maintained an aggressive style of offense also.
My job is to try to push the ball up the court, try to make it a full-court game, because you make it a half-court game, you're playing right up the Pistons' alley, because they have great defensive people, and you want to try to get them in a transition game.
It was a very good win. I mean, we played some good teams, and we've got a lot of people hurt, and it's good for a lot of people to be able to step forward.
They played as well as they could play, and they're doing a heck of a job, with a beat-up lineup. And Parrish has definitely played like an all-star. Unbelievable.
Large game. Sherman, Big Joe, Picnic played well, definitely.
Big win by the Celtics, obviously, and it tied them for first place again in the Atlantic Division with the New York Knicks. Whether or not this team can contend for a world championship is still to be seen. Two former members of the Boston Celtics who know what winning a world championship is all about were in town last week, and when Amalie Celtic Weekly continues, we'll talk with both Paul Westphal and Gerald Henderson.
Back over to Worthington, and it's picked off. Goes to Henderson, he lays it off of him. It's all tied up. A great play by Henderson.
Well, last week, a couple of former Celtic guards were in town, one who's doing some coaching and the other who is still playing. What they both have in common is that they helped lead the Celtics to world championships. Let's take a look at Phoenix assistant Paul Westphal and the newest Piston, Gerald Henderson. Paul Westphal began his NBA career with the Boston Celtics in 1972 as the team's first-round draft pick. He remained here for 3 years, serving as a backup to the starting tandem of JoJo White and Don Chaney.
I wouldn't trade those 3 years for anything. I just really enjoyed my time here. I got to be around and play with, legends of the game. Red Auerbach, Tommy Heinsohn, Havlicek, Don Nelson, Satch Sanders. It was just Paul Silas. I made a lot of really good friends and learned an awful lot.
Westphal would stay in the league for 12 years, but a high point came in his second season when he helped the Celtics to their 12th world championship.
That was probably as much of a thrill as anything in my career because I got to play a lot in the championship game and felt like I was a part of that. And then the next year we had a good team and got upset by Washington. But it was 3 really great years basketball-wise, and I kind of grew into the NBA here.
Paul Westphal was injured in college, and he was not one of the fastest players that ever played the game. And he wasn't really used to an up-tempo style. But when he came here, he proved to be very adept at fitting into an up-quick style, and he was a great offensive player. There's no question in my mind that he's one of the premier guards offensively that has ever played the game. He could take it strong to the hoop, he had a great outside shot, and he knew how to use a pick.
In 1975, Westphal was traded to the Phoenix Suns, and it was there that his career would blossom. He averaged better than 20 points per game and was named to the All-Star team 5 times. But the memory that will always linger with Celtic fans was his role in perhaps the greatest NBA game ever played, the Titanic 3-overtime struggle in Game 5 of the '76 Championship Series.
It was one of the most exciting, intense games ever played, and particularly the fact that the importance of the game. People remember it, and I certainly remember being in it. It just seemed like you would just expect something ridiculous to happen and just go from there and deal with it.
Westphal contributed mightily as the Suns and Celtics battled through 2 overtimes, and Garfield Hurd's famous shot extended the game a little longer.
Won't start until it's touched. They'll have to throw it up. Garfield, turnaround shot in the air. It's good. It's tied again. I don't believe it. We've got a third overtime in a Boston gun.
In that third extra session, the Celtics ran out to an 8-point lead, but then Westphal scored 6 consecutive points to narrow the gap once again.
He was a top contributor in their offense in those days. So for him to erupt at a point where we thought we had the game salted away was not surprising to me. But one play was really a great play that he made. He did a 360 on the fast break and made a layup, and I almost fell over the bench.
Playing in that series is one of the highlights of my career. You know, you can't forget going back and playing against a team that you've been with for 3 years and playing for a world championship. It was something that's impossible to forget.
We did win that game ultimately, and we did win the series, notwithstanding the great play of Paul Westphal.
Paul Westphal retired from the NBA in 1984, and after coaching successfully at the college level, he is now the top assistant to Cotton Fitzsimmons on the bench of the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix organization has already announced that when Cotton retires, Westphal will be the head man.
When I was coaching in college, I said, well, because people asked me if I would ever be in the NBA. I said, well, I don't know. I said, you can't really plan that type of thing, but, you know, I would never want to be an assistant coach unless I could be an assistant for somebody like Cotton Fitzsimmons, you know, who really has fun with the game, and I'd have to be in a situation where you have a chance to win, and then, you know, I kind of described the situation it would have to be, and then all of a sudden it was laid out for me. So it's just been an unbelievable situation. Cotton is the youngest 60-year-old you'll ever meet, and he's having a great time, and I don't begrudge him any of his pleasure. As long as he wants to coach, he's the coach, and then when he gets sick of it, then he'll turn it over to me.
Gerald Henderson started his NBA career in Boston in 1979 and was part of 2 World Championship teams. Since leaving the Celtics in 1984, Henderson has played with 6 other clubs and recently returned to the Pistons on a 10-day contract.
This is my 3rd year with the Pistons, and I know the personnel, I know the players, and if in fact, you know, the last couple of years, a couple guys went out, and fortunately I was there so that I got right with the team because I knew the plays and everything.
Henderson can never return to Boston without rekindling memories of 1984, when his steal at the end of Game 2 against the Lakers etched him in history.
Very quickly in now to Magic. Back over to Worthing, and it's picked off. Goes to Henderson, he lays it off and in. It's all tied up. A great play by Henderson.
It was a great steal. You know, everybody started to fall back, and all of a sudden Worthy got careless and tried to make a cross-court pass, and Gerald just stepped into the wings and got the steal in the basket, and that really saved the series because we would have been down, you know, 2 games, and it would have been very difficult to come back. But that was a big key win and steal.
And they still believe to this day in Los Angeles that if that pass hadn't been stolen, that they would have won the series that year. But I think Gerald Henderson was always a very opportunistic player.
You know, that was a long time ago, you know, and man, what have you done for me lately? So, you know, hopefully tonight we can go out there and make some more plays.
Maybe so, Gerald, but none will be remembered by Celtic fans like that famous steal of 1984. For the past 14 years, the Boston Celtics have had their practices at Hellenic College. Well, recently they moved to a new location. When Amalie Celtic Weekly continues, we'll take an extensive look at the Gosman Sports Complex.
Now is called the Boston Sports Convocation Center. Mr. Abram Boston gave us $3.5 million to endow the building, and his name graces the front of it. The entire complex of athletic facilities here are named for Joseph and Clara Ford, who were original trustees of Brandeis.
Well, the Celtics recently moved their practice site from Hellenic College out in Brookline to Brandeis University in Waltham. Now, last week, Ed Pinkney took us all on a tour of the basketball part of that facility. Today, we will take a look at the entire recreational area and hear what the Celtics and Brandeis feel about their new relationship.
After a number of years, Brandeis University has received a new sports complex, the Gosman Sports and Convocation Center. While the original gymnasium, the Abraham Shapiro Athletic Center, was a very useful facility for many years, the growth of the college in the past decade has created a need for a more up-to-date athletic facility.
It was about 40 years in coming, but good things come to those who wait. We've been waiting a long time. We really got what we wanted. It's a magnificent building. Brandeis was very generous to us, and it's going to work beautifully, I think.
The sports complex now makes Brandeis an extremely multi-dimensional facility to fulfill the needs of many different sports.
Well, there's 4 courts out there, and there's 2 weight rooms and 3 multi-purpose rooms, and there's a chance to keep doing things over and over again, which was always our problem in the past. If something was going on, kids had to wait hours in order to use the same facility. Now they shouldn't have to wait at all.
After 14 years at Hellenic College, the Celtics have a brand new practice facility here in Waltham, Massachusetts.
It's a beautiful facility that Brandeis has put up, and we're very happy to be a partner in it here and being able to use the facilities. We've stepped forward into the modern ages, and I think it's something that the players will benefit from in the long run.
The affiliation between the Boston Celtics and Brandeis did not just begin in January. They have a tradition almost as long as the storied history of the Celtics themselves.
Brandeis and the Celtics go way back anyway. Red was on our first athletic board of overseers, and Casey coached here, and Bob Branham coached here. So, we've always felt very close to the Celtics, and having them here is a kind of a natural.
It's a great honor because it's such a great building. When you look at it, the players are ecstatic. Plus the other facilities, other than the court, our own weight room, training room, and good lockers, and everything. Of course, it's an advantage when you got a guy like Jeff Cohen, who used to work for us for 15 or so years. He knows what the problems are. He knows what we need, which is great.
It's really a complete, classy facility with everything that a team like ours would need. It's really well constructed. The court's terrific. We've got a track, the weight rooms. Really everything's here. Jeff Cohen and his staff have been great to work with, so we're really pleased that we're here. I think it's going to pick everybody up a little bit.
The Celtics aren't the only ones who will benefit from the complex. The students of Brandeis will also be frequent users.
Well, what we're hoping it'll do is give our kids something to have fun with. And that's what this building is all about. It's the relaxation part, where intellectually the Brandeis is at the level we want it to be at, but in terms of sort of student activities, we were lacking. Now all of a sudden we're not lacking anymore. We've got everything, almost everything we want, and the kids have a great place to relax in. And the Celtics bring a kind of excitement with them that we think will add to things. And this building will be good for concerts and commencement and all of that, which makes a nice thing. And as I said earlier, it's the first building we've had where the entire student body could meet, and that's saying something also. So this is kind of a dream come true that Brandeis has needed for a long time.
Although the Celtics have moved on, Hellenic College will always be appreciated for what it did for the organization.
The priests who run Hellenic and all the people who were there were great. And as you know, we put a little time and energy and money into it to fix it up the last 2 years. And in some ways, it was kind of hard to leave there because a lot of good feelings there over 14 years for the Celtics.
As far as I'm concerned, the Hellenic College and community served the Boston to 3 world championships. So they should be very proud when they look at 81, 84, and 86. Hopefully, Brandeis can bring the remainder that will make up that 20 in this in the 90s.
Most people in the organization could not compare the two facilities except for one major aspect.
I think with the more and more injuries that we've had to certain players, we've had to get a little bit bigger medical facility. And here at Brandeis, we can certainly accommodate a lot of those needs, either through therapy, hydrotherapy, or massage therapy, or whatever the case dictates.
It makes it tremendously easy. When Arnie and I first got here with the Celtics 5 years ago, they used to tape in the locker room, and we made a change over at Hellenic to let us tape inside. We created a different room. But to come over here from where we were coming from, it's just fantastic, especially with our injuries right now. I have 5 or 6 tables to work on. I could have ED work out on the Cybex behind me. Things worked out real well, and having the track around the court, it's great to monitor the athletes. And then you can, for us right now, some of the new guys we're getting, some of them are in shape and some of them aren't, and we're able to work on the conditioning right after practice, and the hassles are just so much easier.
They've got all the equipment and all the space that you'd want. I mean, Eddie's training room at Hellenic was pretty small, and here it's part of a real training complex with really lots of added additions. So I think from a training standpoint, it's great. I'm just hoping we don't need the training facilities in the second half of the year as much as we've needed them in the first half.
For basketball fans everywhere, the signature on the court most likely has some special meaning.
It's a misprint. I think it's a tribute to a great person. You know, Ray has done a lot for the game and for the Celtics. So I think it's definitely a big honor for him.
Well, Brandeis and Red Auerbach go all the way back, and that was a wonderful connection. And the school was thrilled when he said he would go along with having his name placed on it. And the Celtics ownership have already pledged a wonderful tribute to him. And it's adding a lot. And for Chris, for me, it's a warm feeling. He's my second father. So it's great to have him connected with it, and having the Celtics connected with this building makes for a wonderful kind of marriage for us.
That was kind of a surprise to me when somebody told me. But like I said, it's a great honor, and I tell the boys, be careful with my court.
The Celtics will not see much of Brandeis this week as they have to hit the road. It all begins on Tuesday night when the Celtics take on the Washington Bullets down at the Cap Center in Landover, Maryland. Game time at 7:30 on WFXT. Then on Friday night, the Celtics will be at the Milwaukee Bucks, the Bradley Center in Milwaukee. Game time there at 8 o'clock, and then back-to-back on the road Saturday night. The Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. 76ers looking for a little payback after that horrible showing last Friday night. That game Saturday night at 7:30 down at the Spectrum. That'll do it for Amalie Celtics Weekly this week. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next week, everybody.